Good evening, everyone. Welcome to HR Leaders Worldwide Spotlight. Joining me as host is a seasoned HR and organization development leader, master's in business administration degree holder, and a fellow in people management, Mr. Ryan Barrion.
And joining me is an HR and organization development consultant, a PhD in organization development candidate, and Mrs.Tourism Universe 2019, Miss Giselle Legaspi-Barrion.
All right, thank you, partner. This program is brought to you by GLB Management Consultancy Services, or Great Learnings and Beyond Management Consultancy, a company that is dedicated to help organizations succeed in terms of achieving its targets for the business as well as for its people through our proven effective human resources, organization development, and learning and development interventions. If you want to find out more about what we offer, I invite you to please visit our website at www.greatlearningsandbeyond.com, or you can also check out our Facebook, that's GLB Management Consultancy.
And of course, welcome to our episode for this February 2021. Don't forget to share, like, and subscribe to our YouTube channel, Great Learnings and Beyond, and be a part of our member of our community, HR Leaders Worldwide on Facebook.
All right, so here we go. All right, so this time we're going to have our topic, Global Best Practices in Transforming Culture. And we have a perfect guest for this month's spotlight. Our featured guest of the month is no other than a seasoned HR and organization development practitioner who is actually based in the US in a pharmaceutical company. Currently, he is the director of HR business partner. And actually, he took his master's in HR and organization development partner at the University of San Francisco in the United States. And he's also a certified senior HR professional by HR Certification Institute. No other than Mr. Noel Barrion. Hi, Noel.
Hi, Noel.
Hi, Giselle. Hi, Ryan.
How are you doing?
I'm doing very well, thank you.
All right. Noel, tell us about what you do in your current role as an HR business partner director.
Yeah, thank you very much. And just first of all, I want to say thank you so much for the opportunity to be here and to join your show. Yeah, as an HR business partner, it's my responsibility to really help the business with their people strategy, right? I mean, obviously I work with leaders in the business who are trying to meet different business goals. And in order to meet those business goals, they need to have a fully maximized, fully engaged workforce. It's part of my role to really help them with that.
Okay,
Interesting.
You mentioned about you want your role is more of to have a fully engaged workforce. But do you have a team that handles organization development and talent development, or is it under the turf of your HR business partner department or group?
Yeah, so the way the structure of the HR team at my company is set up is basically there is an org strategy and development team, which is separate from the HR business partner team. The org strategy and development team, they're really responsible for organizational culture, for development programs, and where we work really closely with that team is the HR business partners are really sort of at the front lines with that particular business unit. And we help bring to life and embed, any organizational culture practice and ensure that, those are being embedded at the leadership, the manager, and also the employee level. So it's a really close partnership between the teams.
All right.
Being an HR business partner, Noel is in the thickness of the firing range,
Right.
or firing line, because he's very much involved in the business. And as such, how do you manage your team to always be that strategic?
Yeah, that's a really great question. And, I think one way to think about it is traditionally when people think of HR or HR business partners, they think of the HR generalists, right?
Yes.
Or HR police, right?
Yes.
And that's a very sort of traditional model where this person is responsible for hiring, for firing, and those types of, more personnel types of activities. And I think, obviously more recently, strategic HR has really shifted where the business partner is really intended to be a partner to the business. And so there's a couple of things that are really important to make that happen. So you absolutely have to understand what it is that the business unit you do supports, right? What are they responsible for, right? So you have to be able to speak the language of the business. You have to be at the table, work with them at the leadership team level. You have to help them make decisions. You have to help them look at the long-term strategy, and not just from the business goal perspective, but again, from the people perspective. So that's really sort of, I think, how, the strategic HR business partner is different from, the more traditional sort of HR role that, was more evident in the past.
Yeah, based on your experience, because some people have difficulty of transitioning from the traditional model to a business partner model. What paved the way, or what helped you, or what do you think can be of help to HR practitioners to really successfully transition to become a business partner?
Yeah, I think it's a difficult transition for me. I feel like I entered the workforce at a time when strategic HR business partnering was really starting to become, a thing. And so I never felt like I had to play that traditional HR generalist role. So it wasn't a change for me. And I really entered, that career wanting to really support people strategy, not those other aspects of HR. So for me, it wasn't really a change. I know that, for HR professionals who have been in the workforce longer, it's definitely been a change. And some have, decided to focus more on things like employee relations, right? Or performance management, or recruitment, because, that move to sort of strategic thinking is quite different. It's a very different skill set. And in a lot of ways, I think, as you alluded to before, it's really utilizing that organizational development skill set as opposed to the traditional HR skill set.
Now, speaking of organizational development, definitely it has something to do with culture transformation. How do you see, or how do you look at cultural transformation as
Yeah, I guess,
a business partner, or OD person?
yeah, absolutely. And I guess, maybe the starting point there is to, think about, well, how do you define organizational culture, right? And to me, the way I like to think about it is it's really sort of the lived values and beliefs of an organization. And I think the key part there is the lived piece, right? Because obviously a company can create a poster and a website and state, these values and beliefs, but those are just words on paper or words on a website, right? And it's that lived part that I think really makes culture is really sort of true culture. And so for me, it's that's evident, or you can see that when you think about how does work get done, right? How are decisions made? When a leader does something, what are all the employees sort of paying attention to? It's those actual behaviors that people demonstrate. And also, how are certain practices or policies or even technology embedded into the organization to reflect that culture, right? To me, that is sort of what culture ultimately is. And so I think, in terms of your actual question around culture transformation, to me, it's that intentional change, right? Of really trying to drive a particular outcome that's different from before.
Have you gone through any organization culture transformation recently, especially with the pandemic? We know that it affected the economy, not only locally here in the Philippines, but actually across the globe, right? And I know for a fact that it cuts across different industries. There's an impact, although they're saying that, these days pharmaceutical companies and telecommunication companies and even hospitals are just some of the industries that are considered to be stable. But you're from a pharma, but did you go through any transformations
Recently?
Yeah, absolutely. So I would say it's definitely altered the way of working. I think, the basic sort of values and beliefs of the organization remain the same, but you know, how we're doing work is very different. You know, what definitely feels different for me personally and for a lot of my colleagues is, you know, things felt, you know, intense and moved very quickly before. I would say we feel that even more now, just because, you know, those boundaries between sort of work and personal are so blurred. You know, it's during my work day, I work from home, so I'm looking at the computer. I'm either, you know, doing work on my laptop or in Zoom meetings. When I'm done, you know, I might be talking to family and friends again on the computer and the laptop, or I might be playing video games again on the computer and the laptop, right? So yeah, I mean, I think there's just, that part has definitely changed. I would say, you know, for my personal experience and at my company now, you know, there was some skepticism around whether or not work from home would work.
Right.
I would say that skepticism has completely gone now, because I think, you know, for us in 2020, the company results were just amazing. We did really well.
How frequent are you reporting to the office? Do you still report to the office physically?
No, I'm working from home 100%, and this is very different because prior to the pandemic, I was in the office every single day.
What a change.
Yeah, it's a big change, right? And is it the same with other departments, or are there selected departments who can actually report 100% at home?
Yeah, so I would say much of the workforce is working from home, 100%. Of course, you know, since we are a pharmaceutical company, there is a population that they are traveling, visiting physicians. You know, there's also a portion of our population that's focused on manufacturing, so they do have to go into, you know, the manufacturing plant. And then we also have quite a few scientists who are in the lab, right? So they've definitely had to modify how they do work as well, because, you know, they're not able to be as close to each other working in the labs as they were before. They've had to sort of change hours up. Yeah, so definitely, I would say a lot more change for them and a lot more impact for them.
Okay, I would just like to go to the meat of our discussion. What would be, Noel, what would be the tips, or should I say techniques that you have adopted, or mechanisms that you've had, so that this work from home and this new normal would be workable for everyone? What were the different interventions in terms of culture transformation were you able to put into place, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think, you know, in this pandemic world where we're working from home, there's a couple of things that have been really important, right? You know, one thing is definitely, you know, you're not going to have these serendipitous, organic, you know, meetings with people where you just bump into them. And so you do have to be much more intentional about stakeholder management. I mean, of course, you know, stakeholder management is such a key part of organizational transformation, right? So, and that's been difficult, right? When I was still working in the office, I had, you know, one of the business leaders that I would work with. When I would come in the morning, she was always there. And, you know, I'd come in and say hi, we'd get to sort of chat for a little bit. And usually almost 99% of the time when I would leave, she was still there. And it was always a great opportunity for me to just say, hey, just check in on how are things going? Oh, did you see my email? Oh, did you hear about this? Can we talk about this? And I would always use that opportunity to just, you know, catch up with her. And now it's just a lot more difficult, right? And so I have to be a lot more targeted about what I choose to speak with her about, because I just am not going to get as much more time. There's a lot more email traffic, you know, between us, and you know, whereas before when we would email each other, these would be really well-written emails, well thought through, you know, because we just didn't email as much. And now we're emailing, it's almost like we're texting, right? They're just much shorter messages. And I think that's just because, you know, we don't have the benefit of you know, being able to see each other face to face and having those sort of by chance serendipitous meetings. So, I guess the stakeholder management is definitely going to be different. How you engage people is going to be very different as well. And so, we've had to do a lot of work to learn how do we use Zoom to really have productive dialogue and conversation with people. So for example, how do you use the breakout rooms? How do you use the different tools in Zoom, like the whiteboard? How do you use quizzes to, engage people? How do you use the chat feature? So when you're having a conversation, you're also having the live talking conversation, but then all the conversation going on in the chat box as well. Like how do you manage that, right? And so, in a lot of ways, it's been a learning curve, and I'm still, trying to adjust to that. One thing that I have joked about with a lot of my colleagues is, especially, in face-to-face offsites, how difficult it would be sometimes to get people to move from one room to another room, and to finish a discussion, a breakout discussion as they come back. But now in Zoom, you just click the button and everyone's there, whether or not they're ready to be there or not.
There's no point for you to say, can my team go back? Otherwise, it will disrupt the whole process. We haven't finished yet.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
I had those takeaways, like you mentioned, about targeted communication. You have to be a
More
kiss.
deliberate.
Keep it short and simple with your message, with your emails, which is becoming like an SMS now. And then you also mentioned about the need to educate people on the usage of platform, particularly with Zoom, which is, I believe, your main medium for connecting with them. How about the other factors? Like, for example, we know that remote working has an impact to psychological state or being of employees. How do we address that part? Like most of the engagements now is online.
Yeah, I'd have to say that's a big challenge. I think we have recently realized and received feedback from our employees through our surveys that that stress, they're feeling that stress even more so than ever before, right? We're providing lots of resources for our employees. Everything from virtual workout sessions to virtual yoga, virtual meditation practices. We have an outside vendor that we work with that can provide counseling services to employees, and not just an employee assistance program, but actual sort of mental health counseling resources. So there's been quite a lot. We also have been working with teams to facilitate just fun happy hours and casual sessions, right? Just because, again, we're missing out on those connections, those social connections with people. And so, we've been very intentional about providing that as a resource to employees.
Oh.
And by the way, the operation of your company is within different parts of the US, right? So means geographically scattered across the nation. So you usually connect with all of them, or just certain leaders, and they'll be the one to cascade information.
Yeah, I would say it's a little bit of both. I work mostly with the leaders, but there's a lot of situations where the leaders want me to support, their staff meetings, to have sort of a presence in front of all the employees. So, definitely willing to do that. And, obviously one of the benefits of the pandemic, or, the virtual working is it's much more easy for me to sort of be in front of employees across the nation. And we also do have offices in Europe and Latin America as well. And so, this has also provided me an opportunity to interface with those teams more.
Okay.
Quite interesting work.
Yeah. I just like to go back to what you mentioned earlier, Noel, about targeted communication. Was there a particular research on that, or is it sort of gut feel that this should be the proper style of communicating nowadays, targeted? Because, we are remotely working and people would suppose that you have to instruct more because you don't get to see each other face to face. But here you are, you're saying it should be focused, should be targeted, keep it simple. Where is it coming from?
Yeah, I mean, I guess a lot of that's been sort of trial and error, to be honest. I think earlier on in the pandemic, there was an intense need for people to have a community to sort of just process what was going on. On top of that, earlier on in the pandemic here in the US, obviously there was a lot of, challenges with racism going on as well. And so that was really, causing a lot of, exhaustion and stress for employees too. And so, I would say earlier on, we had to be, communicate, I would say, a lot more and really be there for employees. I think more recently, as it's become a little bit more normal for people, I think we've had to be, we would get basically feedback that, okay, we're just kind of over communicating here. And so, I think we've realized that we just have to be more targeted and planful.
So it has reached to that point that you made the realization that you may be over communicating. That's why you resorted to make it just targeted.
Yes, exactly.
Okay. How is it like to give instruction to people, let's say for some of them who are physically present at work, and here you are for some positions or department, they have to work remotely. Was there any challenges or derailers, and how were they able to overcome those? Communicate differently.
Yeah, actually, I think that's, I mean, I don't work with that many colleagues that are in the office, so I might not be, the best person to ask with that. But I mean, for the people that I did, I think people understood the role that they have is one that is, really conducive to being in the office and them having to be there. And so, I think in some ways for some of them, yes, it was exhausting, but in other ways, people saw them as heroes, right? Because they had to be in the office and they had to sort of really be face to face and sort of put things,
They are your frontliners.
They are the frontliners, exactly. So there's some risk associated with that. So I think as the pandemic has gone on, I think there's definitely some exhaustion there, right? So for these people, because I could only imagine what it feels like to go into a big office and there's only 2 or 3 people there, right? It's almost like a ghost town. It must feel very weird. So.
Okay. Noel, I know that as an HR person, an OD practitioner, you have developed a keen sense for observation, for perceiving things. You're not a fortune teller, of course. You can perceive, like in my case, I can do that also. I have this gut feel in business. I have this gut feel on people behavior. Now, with 2021, what do you think would be the trend in terms of organization culture transformations? What should be the focus of ODHR?
Yeah, no, really good question. And of course, I wish I did have that crystal ball and could predict the future. But I think a lot of ways, I think 2021 is going to be around, defining what does normal look like, right? Because I think in some ways, there is a desire for some people for things to return back to how they were. But we can't even call that normal anymore because that's not going to be normal. For some people, there's aspects of having, work from home, which they find really beneficial and don't have to commute for hours, and the environment is benefiting from that too.
Agree.
Yeah, exactly. And so for them, what they're hoping normal will be a little bit different, right? And so, I think there's going to have to be a lot of, work from, different companies, HR departments to really get that input from employees, know that and accept that not everyone's going to be happy, but then also just ensure that people remain focused on, what is it that I like about this company? What is it that I'm inspired by? And hopefully, people will continue, to remain with the company based on that inspiration and that sense of purpose.
Do you think that's a factor that you think that hiring the right talent for 2021, specifically those who have the right traits in this new normal, would be a big factor in transforming culture?
I think so, absolutely. I mean, I think, again, going back to that stakeholder management, right? I think people really have to have that mindset, that proactivity, that tenacity
Mhm.
to, to onboard to a company where
Right.
they don't know, they haven't seen, people face to face. They don't know who to meet. Unless someone tells them to meet that person.
Right.
Whereas if you're meeting, a company, you're going to a company and you're in the office, you might just meet people at lunch. And just because, oh, you're walking by them and someone introduces you. But here, in onboarding in the virtual environment, it's literally people telling you, oh, go meet this person, go meet this person. And then, you do that. And so, yeah, that's much more difficult. You have to be savvy about trying to find out who your stakeholders are. That is a different skill set.
Yeah. Having said that, Noel, because I suppose most of the people that you have are those you had a few years back already. But
Mhm.
as you project from where you're seated of hiring new people on board, how are you preparing for it? As you've said, because this time you want to have the opportunity to probably visit the office, really have a feel of how the culture is. How are you preparing for this scenario as you get or source out for new talents?
Yeah, I mean, so since the pandemic started in March, I would say, so we're a company right now about 905 people, over 900 people. When the pandemic started, we were probably in the low 800s, right? So, we've had to onboard quite a few people March, and we're definitely going to grow by 100 plus this year as well. And so we'll have quite a few people who have onboarded completely virtually.
Mhm.
So I think in the beginning, it's definitely difficult for the new hire, onboarding team to adjust almost overnight to onboarding people. But I think they were pretty quickly able to adjust their practices. But I mean, it was literally things like, how do we get the laptop to that person on their, first day? And there was no infrastructure for that. And we had people from IT driving to people's houses to deliver it because we just, didn't know how to manage that quickly. And I think now, I think things have certainly more normalized. I think people are expecting that. I think there are also just little things that you have to do to help someone feel like they're really welcome and belong to the company, right? And so sometimes it's depending on the person, it's just these little things like notes from different leaders, just welcoming to the company. Being maybe with the when you have a company announcement of a new employee, maybe adding a slightly different, more personal spin to that, right? Because they're not going to have those conversations with people just organically over lunch conversation. And so, yeah, I think again, you just have to be much more intentional with those communications. Making sure that if you have a staff meeting, that's you're reserving time at the staff meeting to introduce the people, right? The new hires. So yeah, it's welcoming new people in the pandemic is definitely much more of a challenge.
Yeah.
But I think we're definitely learning from it, and everyone's human. They get the challenges, and people I think have also adjusted their expectations.
Mhm.
All right. So we have learned so much from Noel and their best practices in terms of handling organization culture. At this point, I would like to find out what would be your message, Noel, for those who are handling culture, regardless of where they are at, of what country they belong. What's your final message to them?
Yeah, no, it's a really good question. I mean, for people that are involved with organizational culture or aspiring to work in organizational culture, just know that there's the possibilities are almost limitless, right? If I were to think about myself at 20 years ago, as I was embarking in HROD career. never would I have imagined all the different experiences that I've had, whether it's, you know, working and living in Switzerland or in the UK, and now here in San Francisco, or, you know, managing a project that, you know, impacts 90,000 employees, or now, you know, managing a project that is really transforming how we look at inclusion and diversity within the company. You know, these are things 20 years ago were maybe something in books that I read, and you know, was much more sort of theoretical, and they were very interesting. And now getting to sort of live through that and apply that is, again, it's pretty amazing. So I guess the advice would be just, you know, be ambitious, but also know that you never know sort of what amazing things this type of career is going to bring to you.
All right, well said. Actually, I know Noel, and he has a very impressive profile, very impressive credential. He gets to last so long in most organizations that he had been to, so he really walks the talk. Thank you so much, Noel, for this very enriching interview, and we hope that Ryan and I can invite you again in our future episodes.
Absolutely, it would be my pleasure, and thank you so much, and thank you to all your listeners.
Yes.
Yes.
Bye. Thank you.
Thank you, Noel, for that enriching discussion. We really enjoyed it.
We learned a lot. Thank you so much. And we just like to leave you with this quote. It's not the strongest of the species that survive, nor the most intelligent, but the one most responsive to change, as per Charles Darwin. We heard it from Noel. We've had a great discussion on the importance of having targeted, focused conversation or communication, keeping everything short and simple. That's one way to go about this new normal of things. All right, so with that, we hope to see you again on our third Saturday episode on HR Leaders Worldwide Insights with Ryan and G. This is Giselle Barrion.
And Ryan Barrion. And
We'll
this
see you
is
again.
HR Leaders
Worldwide.